Hey, this is Doug Jones from Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, Hellboy 1 and 2, Hocus Pocus, Pan's Labyrinth, and currently on Falling Skies. But today, you are listening to GenreTainment.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of GenreTainment at SciFiPulseRadio.com. We're your hosts, Marks
and Julie. GenreTainment is where we talk about what's happening in the world of film, TV, and web series. We give you interviews with writers, directors, producers, and actors in both independent and not-so-independent creations. Now for this 103rd episode, we are chatting with writer-director Daryn Murphy, creator of the time travel series Timekeeper, and actor Matt Lunsford, who stars as Mitch Manners on Timekeeper.
We learn more about this time travel web series, the Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign for Season 3, and get some tips about crowdfunding and acting. Oh, and we also learn about Daryn's secret first film, if Matt is really British.
I wonder.
And what makes a good time-traveling pet?
Oh, I bet a rock. Pet rock.
They age well.
Yeah, you don't have to feed them much. Now, before we get started with the fun interviews, we should point out that the music you just heard at the beginning of the show was a snippet for the theme song for our web series, Reality on Demand. It was a song composed and performed by our friend T. Sean Hardy. Now, you can find our web series at realityondemandseries.com. Now, let's get started with our interview with Daryn and Matt.
His name is Mitch Manners, and he's traveling through time.
You don't have a choice.
We'll see about that.
You don't do it, and things will get worse. Trust me.
I don't.
Welcome to the show, Daryn and Matt.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sorry, Daryn.
Well, now, part of the reason why we have you on the show today is because of your Indiegogo campaign for Season 3 of Timekeeper.
Yes, indeed.
Now, before we talk too much more about the crowdfunding campaign, can you give us the elevator pitch for Timekeeper for those of our listeners that haven't seen it yet?
Sure. What I like to tell people, because it is kind of a broad, convoluted story of time travel, and that always gets a little complicated. So I generally say if you take Quantum Leap and Memento, and Quantum Leap may not be in everyone's brain, especially in the younger audience, but if you take Quantum Leap and Memento and you smash them together, if they had a baby, you'd have Timekeeper. It's kind of a darker time-traveling story. The main character has some memory loss issues every time he's transported back in time. The powers that are controlling him steal his memory, kind of making him their slave. He's given a task to do, and he's told that if he doesn't do it successfully, the world will face some dire cataclysm. Season 1, Episode 1, we get the idea that because this task is always innocuous, it's always something small and stupid. It's stand on this particular corner and hitchhike. It's eat a fish sandwich, cut in line to block someone who was supposed to be there at a certain time and place. He does it, and he whiles away the hours before he's supposed to do something with anything that gives him instant gratification, because he's going to forget it. So why not, get himself something good in the moment? So he'll stand on a corner, and just as girls pass, he'll use the same pickup line over and over, because why not? And that's how we meet Mitch. But by the end of Episode 1, Season 1, he's asked to kill someone. And even though, his memory is erased, so he doesn't really know if this is the first time that's been asked of him. It seems new. It seems like a brand new thing. And he's forced to reevaluate this dynamic of just simply obeying this vague notion that the future will face this calamity, and what kind of a man he is and what he's willing to do just based on that faith.
This is the same thing I tell my relatives. It's the perfect elevator pitch, because I stole it from Daryn and I tell it to my friends. So,
Daryn, could you let us know where this idea came from? What made you want to make the show?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, the first thing of why did I want to create a web series at all? And the first web series I saw was The Guild, and I feel like a lot of people had that same experience. I'm a big Felicia Day fan, and so when I saw that, I thought, wow, this is really cool. It's short format. It's a direct connection to an audience. Obviously, she has a big following already, and but she didn't have as big a one back then. And the idea of the show itself came from a couple of places. One was just thinking about Star Trek. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of time travel in general, and just thinking about those paradoxes that would come out and how would that really function in the real world. But I always found it, funny. Even I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and I always like to throw that out there because I'm not knocking the show. But whenever there was like a time loop episode, they would get to the end of the show, and someone would ask the captain or someone, "Shouldn't this have happened first? And how did this get there if that never happened?" And it seemed like there's something wrong with the order of things of how it could have worked. Kind of like that, the Kyle Reese thing, how he went back in time and impregnated Sarah Connor to have John Connor. How did that happen in the first place? If it required the future event. And then always in Star Trek, someone would say, Captain Janeway or whoever would say, back in college, back at the academy, we would always just shake our heads and just not want to think about that. It's just too much. It gives you a headache. And it would kind of get brushed under that rug of that's not what their story is about. Their story was about that adventure. So I thought, well, why don't we take that idea, that complicated idea, and make a show about that? What would happen if future powers got to the place where they could take something as complicated as that and make paradox a variable that could be collapsed into an iPod? And now they can control time with that as a functioning thing in the universe. And so that's where the idea came from.
Mm-hmm.
And for time travel, trying to develop the rules for your time travel.
That does, to be fair, it does always give me a headache.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're onto something with that.
Yeah.
Have you done some research on theories about time travel, or are you just drawing from, experience of lots of time travel viewing?
Well, a combination. I mean, I always like to read, science journals and just forums and things that are posted online whenever they're talking about, realistic time travel and what would really happen. Just those thought experiments of what would happen if you went back in time and killed your grandparents, things like that. I really like watching Interstellar and how they kind of played with that concept of time that could stretch and shrink. Just thoughts about, the closer you get to a massive object, a black hole or other, you realistically are bending space and time. And if you could capture that somehow and come back to the Earth, you would have effectively time traveled, even though it's not very helpful. But just the fact that, I think like anything in the universe, if it's possible, it's probably perfunctory, meaning it's happening. If there's any possibility that it could exist under a set of circumstances, there's probably some place in the vast universe that it's happening. And if that's true, if you accelerate far enough into the future, it's probably become something very easy to do in an everyday object like an iPod.
Now, Matt, how much of that did you actually study about time travel before you played Mitch Manners?
Actually, I love Daryn mentioning Interstellar. Obviously, it came out after we'd done the first two seasons, but absolutely, the idea in Interstellar made me feel rejuvenated in the focus of what we were doing, because it did fit inside of that possibility, and that was extremely interesting to me. To play Mitch specifically, he didn't really know what was going on very much, which was a criteria of somebody who keeps losing his memory and only being told one thing and then moving forward. And so my research, I suppose, my backstory was mostly what Mitch says, because he says things. He doesn't have to, like blinking and breathing, and he understands he's a type of person because of what comes out of his mouth. And I suppose he's learning about himself as the audience is learning about himself. The way he reacts to things informs his own character on who he might be, because he's lost his memory. But and so that was very useful for me, and it turns out he's pretty full of himself, and pretty pleased with the fact that he's a good person, and everything that he does, to begin with, makes him seem to himself like a good person, and then he starts to wonder whether he's done something horrible, and that's very interesting dramatically to me. To have a man wandering around thinking he's a good person, but wondering whether he might have done something awful. Well, that's quite interesting. And yet having no power over his own trajectory, really. And that was good too. But I think that the fact that the control that has been over Mitch Manners in the last two seasons has been out of reach. And then at the climactic moment of the last season, it seems like Mitch Manners might have taken some sort of control, some element of control anyway, about his own destiny. That's quite exciting to me. So I'm very much looking forward to how he behaves with that. But being somebody who doesn't know what on earth is going on and then trying to behave correctly, I suppose, has been that's been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, because, I mean, did they pick him because he's a good person and they always know he'll do the right thing? Or is he like, you know, a jailed convict from the future? They've
exactly.
embraced his memory and he's a cocky SOB kind of, because he kind of is, but with his memories of all the bad stuff gone, he can think he's a good person.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that question hangs throughout the series, and I love the fact that we don't know really whether he thinks he's a good person and really he's a horrible person, or whether he thinks he's a good person who's done horrible things and regrets it, or whether he's feeling like he should regret something that actually he, in his former self, was fine with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a curious situation to be. I mean, and I suppose you have to really kind of decide whether you like the character or not. Ultimately, I think he does prove himself to be a good person, because regardless of who he used to be, whether he was a jailed convict SOB or a good person in the past, he does make a decision not to kill because that seems wrong to him. And hopefully that tells us a little bit about who he is now in the present, and I suppose that's the only place any of us actually exist. So I mean, he is good then, like at that moment when he's making that decision, regardless of who he was and who they picked.
And I guess there's a little bit of a Total Recall kind of moment, like at the very end, where, you know, trying to question whether or not he is the person that he's been, who his actions have defined, or the person that he was before, if you recall that storyline.
So
I'm trying to remember the end of it. It's been a long time.
But at the very end, after they defeated the evil organization and whatnot, he's standing there with the girl and saying, "I had a horrible thought. What if this really was all a dream? What if none of this was real? If it was just something in my head while my brain was shutting down?" And that was part of it. But the main element of the story was, his kind of the evil version of him underwent the mind alteration to turn him into the kind of this patch who can infiltrate the rebellion or whatever. And it's him having to decide whether or not he is that person or the person who was reinvented, and his actions being the man he is.
Well, let's go into your guys' backgrounds a little bit. So, for example, Matt, our listeners can tell from your voice that you're from across the pond originally, at least.
I thought he had a speech impediment. No, I'm just kidding.
or it's fake. He's just that good. He's a method.
He's a method actor.
Yes.
He's just, while he's playing Mitch Manners, he's going to pretend to be English until he gets another gig.
Okay, tell us
Exactly.
Tell us a little bit about you.
I'll be Mitch Manners until we've completed the DVD commentary.
He's really from like West Virginia.
He's got like a Brooklyn accent or something.
No, I'm actually from Wisconsin, which is also the Badger State, along with the Cheese State, which I'm very proud of.
To be fair, it's
not many people know that.
So tell us a little bit about your journey as an actor, from your original training and what led you to Timekeeper.
Well, I obviously grew up in England, just southwest of London, near Windsor, I suppose is the nearest landmark. And I studied Shakespeare in college, and I moved over here because I have dual citizenship. My father's American, and he has a lot of family here. So I decided to use the Tampa Bay area as my first port of call when I decided to come to America for wonderful American adventures like I'd seen in the movies. Because I came from a very boring, sort of drab, grey London. Of course, when I got to America, I saw that everybody thought London was drab, grey, and really cool.
And exciting, yeah.
Yeah, obviously I wasn't aware of that when I lived there because it seemed really tedious. But once I got here, I saw with tourists' eyes that, oh, look at that. That actually looks really fun from a distance. But anyway, I've accidentally lived here for 15 years because I love Florida. It's really, really pleasant. A lot of my American family are here, and the opportunities I've been given here in, first and foremost, the theatre community, which I was trained in, so that's where I aimed myself. I've been working with theatre companies in the Tampa Bay area for 15 years, and I've done plays with a wealth of talent, and with a frequency that I could never have expected to be rewarded with if I was in the West End and hoping to get some sort of off West End job doing a play. I mean, there are so many people hoping to do those same things, and I have friends who graduated drama school who have just never done the amount of plays that I've done living here, albeit for sometimes a smaller audience, but sometimes not, and with an exceptionally talented group of people, which luckily Daryn has also been privy to and grabbed the best of, and in his connections with the theatre world, because obviously in the Tampa Bay area there's not as many people who have done film work as perhaps even in Orlando, or certainly Atlanta or South Carolina or something like that, where their film industry is burgeoning. But we have a lot of massively talented people here, and I've built my resume in theatre the way I couldn't have done anywhere else, and it's been extremely rewarding and educational for me. And working with Daryn on film has been even more so, because that's a different animal completely. So I've really enjoyed working with Daryn and learning the difference between working for a theatre audience and working for a camera that's just a few feet away from your face. And that's been wonderfully educational for me.
It is a big difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, I watched the first season and I think, I could have done with about, 1/3 the amount of facial expressions in that one scene. And then by season 2, I watch myself and I think, maybe I figured it out a little bit. And it becomes better as we go along. But I've been absolutely hugely grateful for this experience.
Great. And Daryn, what's your background in film?
Go ahead, follow that.
All right. Well, I started on a little isle in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and I paddle boated here out of sheer will.
He's from the Isle of Man. You just can't tell from his accent.
It's fantastic.
I would dive in the water and kill sharks, bring them on my little paddle boat, and
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess he's probably going to go with Life of Pi. Did you have a tiger?
A small one. It was a baby.
Between Life of Pi and Andy Kaufman.
But I was born in Long Island, New York, and lived there till I was about 10 years old. My father, probably the closest connection I had to film in general. My father went to the New York Institute of Photography. He worked for Color by Deluxe in the film chain, and he got to meet a lot of cool people just being in that environment. And one thing he would do is he would constantly be taking pictures. We have 10 tomes of family albums and whatnot. So I always had that kind of thing going on in the background. And so I got kind of an interest in film through that. I started off actually, once we moved down here and I was going through school, going to college, I went to the University of South Florida. And they had a film program there, but I started off in engineering, quickly decided that I really didn't want to stay in that, even though I had that kind of a technical brain. But I kind of graduated more towards the arts and got involved with their film program and their photography program. It was kind of in a weird place because a lot of things were moving over to digital and mass communications at that time. So I think schools that weren't as hardcore into it were shifting away from a true film program into more of that mass communications. That's kind of what happened to me. So I was kind of halfway through the film program and they kind of made that decision. So it's just kind of the story of my own bad luck. My last name is Murphy, after all. That I was partway through the program, and they decided they made that announcement, but said anyone who was in the program could obviously finish it. But that's another way of saying we're not putting any more money into this. So they still had an editing room with flatbeds and tape deck editors, things like that. They had an old Steenbeck there and a film chain for transferring film. Shot a lot of things on 16 millimeter. But a lot of things would break, and they just had a kind of a tech genius there who would sit there if something broke down and would fix it with solder and stuff. So things would just be down, you'd go into the lab and it might be another couple hours. And that was a little weird and stressful. But coming out of that experience, I graduated with a degree in studio art, and I decided as my last project there, I did a directed study, one of the requirements for finishing out the film program. And I knew I would never finish a feature in a semester, but I decided I was going to make a feature on 16 millimeter. So I decided I was going to spend what little money I had to buy an Eclair ACL 16 millimeter camera and shoot a black and white film, feature length film, because I'm insane. And I set about doing that and quickly learned that golden rule of, you're going to shoot a lot more than you're going to, than what's going to, the final product's going to be, which everyone knows, but I failed to consider quite how much. So I ended up starting to borrow money from, my mother, my father, anyone I could, just to keep the film going. And I actually still have all the film sitting in my closet because I just can't bear to throw it away. And I think we probably shot something like 20,000 feet of film. And I finished it. And it's one of those things where I think every filmmaker along their path, whether you're a director of photography, editor, whatever, you have that project you never, ever want to look at again. And that's what I have. I have an hour and a half long film that I finished. So that's a success. Finishing a feature is a feat. And it's one of those things where, it would have made a lot more sense to do a digital short to learn those things than those lessons versus a 16 millimeter film, feature film, because you can see throughout the course of the experience, things get better technically and just in general in terms of lighting, in terms of production value, in terms of direction. So anyway, that's my story of how I started. But I will say I learned a lot. It's just I took the wrong avenue to getting there. So after that, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, it is a feat, but it's essentially like running a marathon all by yourself.
Right.
It's
it is.
You ran it, but no one's ever going to know.
Well, people know. The people who are involved know, and they've seen it. And but yeah, no one else will ever know. I'll make sure of that. The VHS copy is still sitting on my shelf, and I'll keep it there, and I'll never watch it again. Maybe one day, maybe when I'm 80, I'll be like, all right, let's whip this thing out, find someone who has a VCR, rotting away in their attic, and we'll watch this and laugh.
So what's the name of it, so that I can imagine from now on what it could be?
Sure, and it's very meta, which is very me. It's called Live, Cry, Shampoo, and Die, and it's I'm trying to think of how I describe it.
I don't know where to go with that.
I think my tagline was a semi-autobiographical parody of events that never happened was my tagline.
That doesn't help any at all. I still don't know what to do with that.
So to give some more real world context, it was basically I was working in a corporate job, which I still am. But at the time I was in college, and the corporate job I worked at, I really did not want to be at, but it's my source of funds. I'm thankful to say at least the job I have now I like going to. It's just it's not the thing that drives me as far as art. But at the time it was run by kind of like the stereotypical dictator of a CEO who would kind of lord over the office. And so I kind of took that to the nth degree. And it was a place that made shampoo. So I had it kind of where you never saw that boss, but he always talked to people through conference call on a phone, and the phone was placed on a pedestal higher above than anyone else.
He's like an evil Charlie from Charlie's Angels.
Exactly. So, and it was kind of a Soil and Greens kind of story where sales were flagging, and suddenly there was an accident in the shampoo plant where a cleaner was in one of the tanks, and accidentally the safeties weren't properly installed, and it turned on, and he ended up getting mixed up in the shampoo. And no one knew, and so the product kept getting shipped out, and people all of a sudden really liked it, and orders went up and up and up, and they had to figure out, well, how do we keep this going? Do we start killing people? Do we use animals and stuff like that? So yeah, that's kind of the weird feature that I decided to make. So
it's like Soylent Green meets shampoo.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, it was an interesting experience, and yeah. So coming out of that, just not to make a long story short, I basically learned like a lot of people learn after you get out of school. Everything else on a set, working on productions, other people's productions, started some of my own, and met a lot of great people in the area. And like anything, when you work with people that you find conducive on a set, you get their information and you don't let them go. And a lot of those people came into Timekeeping.
So see, Matt, you'll never escape.
You're going to be pretending to be English forever.
That's right. Get used to that accent.
I know. It's difficult.
You've got it down, man. It's good.
Thank you.
So for the character, since there's a lot of mystery and the character was suffering from amnesia and such, how much of the character background and story did you, Daryn, reveal to Matt as you went per season? And And then how much did you have to make up with that? What you didn't know, Matt?
The backstory is a delightful gift to any actor because I keep losing my memory. So the good thing is that as long as I know as little as possible about what's going on, then I'm quite believable in the fact that I have no idea what's going on.
So Daryn, you keep.
I mean,
in the
I
dark
love
then?
the project so much that he didn't, and I had read what was going to happen, but it's so cryptic, and until it happens on screen, it's a mosaic of a story. So what I was doing was one thing, and then I saw what I did much later edited into the story, and then I realized, oh, okay, so that's really what I was driving toward. But my character doesn't know what he's going to. He thinks that he's just fulfilling this task and possibly becoming a better person, and hopefully so. But he doesn't know, and every time he fulfills one task, he gets shoved back to a place where he has to start figuring that out all over again. So it's not as though he makes leaps and bounds or chapter by chapter. He, episode by episode, he figures out more and more about himself. Every time he goes back in time, he has to once again decide whether he's a good person or not, and decide which direction he's going to go, which I think is a wonderful aspect of the story. It's very interesting to watch a person who's just teetering on the edge of, am I good, or am I supposed to do this horrible thing? I mean, am I a person who does this horrible thing, or am I not that person? Because inside Mitch Manners, it seems to me from the script that he isn't that horrible person. He wants to be a good person. So what I gained from it as a character study to find out how I was going to behave was that he keeps thinking he's good. Even though there's evidence to suggest that he's done bad things, he keeps grabbing hold of the fact that he is a good man, and that matters. And if he keeps doing that, even though his memory is erased, then that must mean that he possibly is a good person. Even if he's a good person now and was a horrible person, like you suggested, he was an inmate who was an SOB and grabbed for this, a la Running Man. These people can either serve their life sentence or run around and be killed by a guy covered in light bulbs. I mean, there's that. But I think that this guy has been grabbed, and at least now, regardless of his backstory before he was grabbed, is finding the good in humanity and trying to do good. And I think that that's interesting, that we don't know where he came from. We don't know whether he's a horrible, horrible person or whether he's a good person who was plucked out of life. We just know that he keeps trying to make the decision to be a good person over and over again in the present.
And then just obviously with a character like that, Matt is forced to play it like that. But there are two things he does get to hang on to, and that's something we talked about. I'm not sure if we do spoilers on your show or not. Should we do spoilers?
It's up to you. It's your show.
Well, you already mentioned the not killing somebody. So
yeah,
okay.
Let's do a couple of spoilers.
All right.
Spoilers.
So spoiler alert. Okay, but yeah. So there's two things.
Put your fingers in yours and go la 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 if you don't want to hear it.
All right, and I'll soften them. I'll do kind of quasi spoilers. Okay, so there's two things he has to hang on to, and the first one was, he chose not to kill someone, and this happens right at the beginning. So that's not much of a spoiler. I think by the end of in season one, he chooses to disobey the powers, and he's given two things. One is he's fast forwarded in time, and he gets something he really wants, which is the love of this woman. But it's all downloaded into his head like all at once. So he wakes up and he has 2 years of memories, which is something brand new. So suddenly a character who couldn't move forward, couldn't progress thematically or dramatically, suddenly has a 2-year backstory. And it is basically being in love with this woman. So he's given a gift, and he thinks he finally has broken out of this cycle. But he's also given a punishment. And that punishment is that the world is facing some catastrophe. So it's almost like, look, the powers are saying, you disobeyed and this is what happens. And then he's pushed back in time again. It's almost like an initiation ritual of you disobey and you get to see what your disobedience has wrought. and he's given that option again of killing someone else. And he kind of makes a deal with himself because he sees the world and he knows what's going to happen to the world if he disobeys. He gets himself a little drunk for doing it, but he makes this deal with himself that he's going to forget. So it gets into that good person, bad person mentality of, I have to do it to save the world. It's an evil thing, but I will forget. But getting into season 2, for whatever reason, and he still doesn't know why, that act haunts him. So every time wherever he goes, he's got 2 things to latch onto. One is that act, and it keeps flashing across his mind, almost like that evil thing you've done, or that bad thing you've done, or the way you've treated someone in your life that sometimes trickles up and you feel bad about. And the thing that he's now barred from, because he's been pushed back in time, is that love of his life, because now the love of his life is a stranger. Because the further he goes back in time, the more she doesn't know him. And he one of his favorite activities now, rather than sitting on a street corner and hitting on girls, is to stalk her. And she doesn't know who he is, so he'll just show up sitting at a table, just staring at her weirdly, like a creepy stalker.
That's the way to a girl's heart.
So that's kind of the 2 pieces.
Absolutely.
Here. As far as backstory that Mitch has to hang on to is, he's barred from what he wants, and he's haunted by what he's done. And he didn't have before that. It was just every mission was this boring thing, and he just had to get through it. And so season 3 is really where we finally get to see the connecting thread back to his original life and what that was. That'll be a major turning point for Mitch, because it's something that'll be brand new for him, and he gets to have some of that colored in. So he gets to have a mix of who he was and who he's trying to be at the same time.
How many episodes will be in season 3?
So if the funding is successful, and that's a big if, my plan is, season 1 was in that 7 to 10 minute range. There were 6 episodes. Season 2 was about the same, maybe more like 6 to 10 minute episodes, and there was 10. So I thought, because I like a serialized story, but I think one of the negatives I would apply to myself on season 1 and 2 is that everything was super serialized. It was literally one episode ended, next episode began with that same thread. So for season 3, I wanted to give myself a little more time, do 15-minute episodes, have at least a subplot that can rise and fall and be resolved, like a little short film that still has an overarching thread that runs the whole season, and then do 6 of them. So it probably is about 50% longer than season 2, but just 6 15-minute episodes instead of 15 at the 6 to 10 minute range.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a good plan. With Indiegogo, how much are you looking for, and what kind of perks are there?
So the goal is 15,000. We are 13% of the way there, so we've got just over 2,000. There's 15 days left to go, so the runway is quickly shrinking. It's freaking me out a little bit. Stay up way too late every night, trying to think of how to push that message out there. And as far as perks, some of our standard perks are, we've got Timekeeper t-shirts, 2 different kinds. The DVDs, you can get season 1, season 2, and then the forthcoming season 3, some buttons, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, the higher value perks, you can be named as, a producer, executive producer, set visit, featured extra, if you want, especially if you're local. And then some of the more out of the box perks are, Mitch has a little time travel device that he's given in season 2, which has some neat little functions like freeze. You can freeze time, and you can do some other things. And so one is to name an app. So you can come up with one. So as Mitch is scrolling through his list of options, like an iPhone, yours can come up. If yours is super cool, we may just use yours instead in the script. And you get to be noted in the credits as a Time app developer. Another one I thought would be pretty cool is you take an element, fictional or true, from your own life, and you can write it as a background element into the story. So Mitch Manners does a lot of running, as we've seen in the course of the seasons, and so your event could be something he blasts through. If you propose to someone, whatever, we can have a little moment. If you have a series of your own that's independent, if we want to have someone wearing a T-shirt, Mitch can run past that person, not bowl them over, stuff like that. And we also have like Skype calls or Google Hangouts, things like that with the cast and crew.
Oh, I like those.
Very nice.
Especially like the inserting your own story into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that'd be a little fun. It's a little immortalized and it's specialized for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really neat. So why Indiegogo versus Kickstarter or some other campaign?
Honestly, because I was going to do Indiegogo because they, you basically get what you get, and then they just take a bigger bite. That was my plan right up until like the last second when I'm like, I really, Season one, no one got any pay with very few exceptions. There were some people who had to commit a lot more of their time and really take time off of work, so they got some pay for that. And then there was insurance and things like that. So we probably spent between $4,000 or $5,000 in season one. Season two was more ambitious. I needed to have some things that were set, like an assistant director that could be there all the time, production sound that could be there all the time. Not trying to have PAs learn how to do sound, which freaks me out. So so there was some pay. It was cut rate. I mean, everyone who worked on season two really had to believe in the project to come. It was 15 days of shooting, but still everyone who got paid a much reduced rate from what they normally would get. But going into season three and looking back, I still had to take on a lot of the elements, especially in post-production, on myself. So all of the editing, the post-production sound, the visual effects, I all had to do myself, and it all had to be, serialized. I can't do, two things at once. So those are things I really want to inject some more money into, because I'm not an effects expert. So I'm basically banging my head against the wall, trying to figure out how to make, 2D into 3D, things like that. I decided at that last second with my finger hovering over the Indiegogo option of fixed versus flexible to go fixed. And I regret that every second, but still I think it's probably the right choice. But which is kind of the same as Kickstarter in just a different platform.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd already set it all up, so I was like, all right, well, I'm already there. So,
is this your first experience with crowdfunding? And Matt, is this your first experience also being in a project with a crowdfunding campaign?
It is for me, yeah.
Well, it certainly is for me also, yeah. I've been trying to repost everything Daryn has posted, so everybody on my Facebook page gets to see it. But yeah, it's been my first opportunity to be involved in a project that's been crowdfunded, yes.
I've enjoyed some of the videos and also tweets and such that you've done.
Oh, thanks.
I like the humor mixed in with it. And
you can tell these guys don't have a sense of humor at all.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the voting on how many times.
I vote more.
Yeah, the crowbar.
Yeah,
More.
Yeah.
If we give you more money, we should be rewarded with more hits to the face. I mean, that's just that's common sense.
And I think if they pay enough, they could be an extra who actually has the crowbar. I'm just
saying.
Who's allowed to do the swiping themselves.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that's fair.
I think so.
I mean,
yeah.
As an actor and a person interested in the project, I think that's a great idea. As the person who's playing Mitch Manners, it sounds like a terrible idea. But
all you've done is convince me that it's great.
Yeah, exactly. I'm basically thinking it's a really good idea. I'm just not looking forward to when I get whacked in the face a bunch of times. But hey, I would like to entertain the people who are enjoying the show. So
suffer for your art, man. Suck it up and suffer for your art.
I was told I would, but I didn't know it would be so literal. But that's fine.
Well, maybe it wasn't literal over in London, but here.
Here, they meant get hit in the face with a crowbar.
Yeah, in America, we have Tom Cruise holding on the side of a plane for real.
Exactly. I will strap myself to the side of a crowbar and get hit in my own face somehow if we can make that happen.
And that's actually one of the fun, because I've still yet to receive a vote, and I put out other caption contests and things like that, and I'll get people to chime in with votes of what the caption should be. But that's the first vote I've heard. I'm like, come on. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like the funnest thing to me to vote on. And the funny thing to me about season 2 is where the crowbar came in. It's kind of one of our themes now. I asked the art department guy, I'm like, okay, we're going to need a fake crowbar, because we can't be hitting Matt with a real crowbar. That'd be a little tough. Not to mention the actress wielding it probably take after take doesn't want to have this heavy thing. And he got one, and the thing was made out of this super solid. I don't even know if it was foam or what, but it weighed the same. I'm like, we still can't hit him in the face with this. We just paid for an expensive, lethal object. Thanks for that, though. And yeah, so
well, it would have just bruised him. It wouldn't have broken any bones. It would have just.
Yeah. Oh no! It would have definitely broken my face.
But we always say, rather than we always just say we can't seriously injure the actor because it'll mess with continuity.
Yeah. We weren't really. We were okay with that.
And IDT in Tampa, which is the International Academy of Design Technology, they let us shoot there for free. And one of the places they let us shoot, which we weren't using it for this purpose, but it was their 3D studio. It was this fully blacked out space, and they had cameras set all around, and this kind of flooring that was like kind of a hardened foam. And so one of the parts was, the actor was supposed to throw down the crowbar, and they did it once, and it was this huge, heavy thud. And, the thing is still kind of sharp. I'm like, if we can't even throw it on the ground, even then this foam pad is, because we're going to like scuff everything up.
Oh, wow.
Should have just went to Home Depot and got a crowbar.
I would say at least it's not sharp, but crowbars aren't really sharp.
No,
so.
no, it's more of a blunt force instrument.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Well, luckily they used the back of the crowbar, which is curved.
Yeah,
so it was a thump rather than a jab. So I was happy with that.
So what's a tip you would like to share? If we have a listener on who's trying to do crowdfunding, what lesson have you learned so far that might help someone else?
Don't do crowdfunding. No, I'm just kidding.
I think the biggest thing I learned probably about the series in general, which I think applies, is I fell into the same trap, I think, as a lot of filmmakers who aren't marketing or don't specialize in marketing. And obviously, the further you get into like web content, you got to wear that hat at least partially. Was when I made the series, I just kind of built it, spent all of my time finishing it, polishing it, and then I just kind of stuck it out there. Said, "Here it is, everyone, come see this." And rather than building it up before there was a thing, and making everyone excited about it, about sci-fi and time travel, even without a thing to show, would probably be a better way to go. Having that audience waiting for something and then dropping it in their lap versus, dropping it down and saying, "All right, everyone, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Come on, stop watching all the cat videos. Come watch this." So
you should have more cats.
You should have a time traveling cat.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Time traveling grumpy cat.
I should just dangle a piece of string.
I did actually. That was one of my polls of like, which makes a better time traveling companion, dogs or cats? Or both. Mass hysteria.
Oh, well, now they both
mass hysteria.
Yeah. If you take the Ghostbusters idea, but I think they can get along.
I think the dogs.
Absolutely. I mean, if there's a piece of string, one of them's going to go for it first, and if there are two pieces of string, one with a fluffy mouse and one with a small plastic bone, then we got it figured out. We can direct them.
We sure can.
Yeah, but I think in terms of crowdfunding, one of the things I've done, because as I've submitted to festivals and when I've gotten in, I've tried as much as possible. I think most I've gone to. So going to Vancouver, going to Miami's obviously closer, Atlanta's closer, but Salt Lake City. Every place I've gone, I've tried to, pay attention in the marketing panels and try and soak up all that knowledge. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is growing that audience before you try and get people to want to donate to it. I think that's the hard part for me is, I don't really wear that marketing hat. And I would love it if I had someone from the beginning who just kind of natively had that as part of their being and could push it out there at the same time. I think that would have been a great thing while we were shooting everything to be like, especially now with Periscope. I mean, I try to do some of those as we've done some of like the teasers for season 3 to do Periscopes and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wish I had been doing more of that as we've gone along, just shooting stuff out from set all the time. I've seen, like LARPs as they're doing season 2, Scott's Kynes, he did like I don't know if it was every day or whatever. And just all of the cast kind of doing that kind of stuff, I think would have been super helpful. But of course, all of that's in retrospect.
Yeah.
So that's my advice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a must do now because I think whenever like Felicia Day started, back in 2007, 2008 and stuff, there was so few original web series content. Now there's a lot more trying to vie for attention on top of traditional TV making a move to Netflix and Hulu and everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You really gotta be a marketer too, which they don't teach you in film school.
No. So good luck.
Yeah. And I think spending the time of engaging with your audience. There's been a lot of discussion on web series today, especially. I follow as many, and that's another thing is it soaks up a lot of your time. Genuinely engaging with different groups. But when you go and see it, there's been a lot of talk about stop just link dumping, stop coming to all these sites and just dropping your link. Watch my show. You check out other people's shows, talk to them, get to know the creators and cross promote. And that's not going to happen with you just firing off emails to everyone saying, "Hey, promote my show." But if you're watching their stuff, commenting on it and getting to know them and building that friendship and community, I think goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And Matt, do you have any tips for people who might want to go into acting and how to pretend you're British?
Yes, absolutely, I do. Of course. First of all,
watch a lot of period films, so you sound like somebody who is always smoking a pipe and wearing a monocle.
So really everyone get caught up on like Poldark this season on Masterpiece Theater.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're an actor who's trying to be an Englishman in America and you don't know what Poldark is, then you're heading in the wrong direction.
You are. You can tell I'm a public television geek, essentially.
Absolutely, and possibly add in just a soupçon of singing detective, because you've got to be fun.
Yeah.
And just have some of that going on, and then watch all of Blackadder, all of the young ones, all of Spaced, all of The Office, and prepare yourself well for being an English person in the 21st century.
So, like, Red Dwarf won't help any?
Oh, Red Dwarf will definitely help. I've got all
good.
7 seasons here. Absolutely. Now, genuinely, what I would suggest to anybody trying to be an actor, and it is it's a saturated market at the best of times, and certainly in places where, like the Tampa Bay area, is not a huge film hub, but there are massively talented people, Daryn being one of the excelling people in this area, but there are a lot of very talented people. The cinematographers he manages to get are exceptional. It looks really good what he manages to get, whether it's him doing it or his colleagues who he's found through trial and error and finding the best people for the job. He's done exceptionally well and found some really good people to work with, and they are here. And Tampa Bay is not, obviously Hollywood, New York, there are a lot of people doing this stuff over there, but it's a lot more competitive. And here, well, I suppose anywhere, somebody trying to be an actor should learn who they are to other people, how they come across to other people, because I think a lot of times we assume we could do anything. I could play Puck or Gandalf. Just give me the script. That's not going to happen. That's not what people are looking for. People see you and they make a decision. So make sure that you present yourself in a way where you can put your own attributes that you have forward in their best light and contrast them as far as possible with the other end of the spectrum of what you have to offer. And then people will know what they can use you for, and they'll see the middle ground, and they'll bring you back from the high point and up from the low point, and that they can work with. Make yourself a malleable tool for a filmmaker to actually use, much like a camera, a lens, editing suite, anything else. Make yourself available to go high, low, wherever they like, and they can do the rest.
Very good. So either learn your craft or be a tool. So
be a tool.
I'm not really sure.
Well,
like a really cool tool, like a super cool drill.
Like a sonic screwdriver.
There you go.
We lost the empire, so I suppose just being a tool in America is what we've got left.
Yeah, I know. We fought a war to get away from you, but we still like you.
It does seem like we're slowly inching it back. Television program by television program. We'll take this comedy back if it's the last thing we do.
Essentially, you're just, instead of a massive military, you're doing a massive PR campaign.
Exactly. We're peopling it with celebrities.
Well, I mean, we love Patrick Stewart, too.
Of course, and Hugh Laurie for president.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So but
we didn't make Matt adopt an American accent. We did talk about it at the very beginning.
Yeah. Can you do an American accent?
Not now. I've been speaking for 40 minutes. That would sound painful. If you'd never heard me speak before, then you would have believed my American accent. But now it'll just be cringingly bad.
I'll pretend to believe you.
Okay. Well, close your eyes so you don't have to look at my face.
Okay.
We're not actually looking at your face.
Everybody's looking at my face. I'm an actor. There's not an accent I can do when I don't sound like I'm from Wisconsin, pretending to be a white guy when I'm actually Martin Lawrence.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I wasn't just pretending to think it was pretty good. That was pretty good.
That's pretty good. I mean, if I had a script, I could learn my lines, and then I could convince you guys that I was American. But
it's
for
getting
now,
better the longer you're going, to be honest.
I thought it got worse the longer I went.
No, I don't know. You did Angry American really well.
Thanks. Well, that is the default American. No
Yeah,
offense.
it seems to be. I'm always sort of shocked by the crazy stereotypes.
Well, no, I went to England recently, and I did hear American people in London, because I went to London like I was a tourist, because I'd like to go and see the things that I never enjoyed when I lived there, because I thought they sucked. But then I went back, and I wanted to see them because I realised that they're genuinely decent things, and I walked around, and I did hear American people more than I heard Japanese or Swedish people, for example, because they speak quieter. But American people did say "honey," and it was like a European vacation film, a little bit.
Well, yeah, I heard. I've read a description from someone who was English and coming to America for the first time, and they said it's not so much that Americans are loud; Americans aren't afraid of being heard.
That's correct. Exactly.
And, because if we really aren't going to say anything, we'd have a problem with someone hearing.
No, it's wonderful, because I've stood wondering which direction from the tube station was Madame Tussauds, but luckily there was a man with a fanny pack and a camera saying, "Which way is Madame Tussauds? Well, honey, come over here. This policeman, this English policeman with the amusing tit-like hat is going to tell us which way Madame Tussauds is. So that's where we'll go."
Well, at least they know that cop won't shoot them.
Exactly. No, I think that they felt finally comfortable in front of a police officer. They thought, well, you're basically giving us directions, right? Because you don't have a gun, so I don't.
Anything else
I mean,
do.
yeah. No, but I'm being derogatory toward American tourists when really I'm half American, and I feel very, very fondly toward the American people. So I take that back.
All these fanny packs are. I've never seen a person in like 20 years with a fanny pack.
They're out there.
Yeah, go to Europe.
Airports?
I think, no, the thing is that on the web, my girlfriend said, I took her to England earlier this year for the first time. She'd never been before. And she said, "Should we get one of those money pouches?" And she's an American person. So she said, "Should we get one of those money pouches?" And I said, well, she said it much higher than that, obviously.
They're going to judge.
"Should we get one of those money pouches?" And I said, "No, Bill." She said, "Should we get one of those money pouches?" And I said, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." And she said, just to secure your funds, because there are a lot of pickpockets in London. And I said, "Do you mean like London fog and like top hats? And I mean, what are you talking about? This isn't Oliver." But on the web, she learned that she was supposed to strap her money into a belt-like thing under her clothing. And I said, "Well, just put it in your pocket." It's like a normal person. But,
well, you have like those discrete things that you can put, but you would put something flat so it wouldn't be noticeable,
Exactly. If you had to, for some reason, travel with your passport into central London, then you would like to have it somewhere where someone couldn't, hoik it out of your back pocket.
I had that because I had my American passport literally strapped inside my clothes in the Balkans in the 90s. So that was like
there you go. Yeah, I mean, that seems necessary.
That was important,
Absolutely.
I had money that I was going to be spending out in pockets.
Sure, but the one thing that will get you home safe,
right,
you want to put next to
your skin.
I
don't have to go knock on the door of the American consulate and try to
exactly and say, "By the way, funny story."
Funny story. I was in Zagreb.
I was wandering around a dark alley in Minsk, and somebody told me I could get a falafel, but I don't know. I've mixed horrible geographical areas.
I was nowhere near. I was in Zagreb, and some guy said there was a really great party down the alley.
Yeah, all I had to do was give them my American passport, and I could go in.
That way, I could show them my ID.
Exactly.
Just to confirm. Wasn't young.
I do understand that people want to keep their belongings safe, but I'm sure we've deviated from the subject somewhat.
trying to figure this out. I guess the international. I've been in other countries.
We had an episode where fanny packs coming
yes,
up.
I have been. I have traveled and lived internationally and never once had a fanny pack.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad for you, and I feel confident that you and I have enjoyed the non-fanny pack life.
I don't.
So many haven't.
I don't feel I've missed out.
You just get a long coat like his character. I've seen Highlander. You can pack swords.
Hey,
even on
Highlander managed to put a sword under a short jean jacket.
That's a good point as well. I don't know how, but he did.
A PA off screen, I think he did it too.
Clearly. Yeah, it was extendable. Like a telescopic sword for the new millennium.
Expanding samurai sword. I like him. He knows Highlander.
Yeah, you have to know Highlander. It's very important.
Absolutely. I always wanted to be Highlander, and luckily Daryn made me the next best thing.
Yes, way to go, Daryn. You get a coat and everything.
I think his character needs a sword. There needs to be a sword fight.
Yeah.
For like no reason at all.
For no reason at all. Sword fight.
Just incongruously. Oh, I just happen to have this.
Have him chop off somebody's head, and it just happens to be a thunderstorm roll through.
Yeah, like he could be fighting some bad guy in a museum, and he grabs his sword, and he grabs his sword, and got a sword fight. There you go.
Exactly. We'll make it for the new millennium. There can be only 01001100.
The people from the future can whip out their ray gun. Oh, it's out of juice. Okay, we go to swords next. That's next on the list.
We're gonna have to go old school on this.
Next on the list of death implements is ray gun down to sword.
Yeah, they all studied like archaic weapons or something.
I think that's an excellent idea.
It is. See, you can thank us.
That's another reason to go on Indiegogo and fund it, because then we could just add that element.
Yeah, sword fights.
Sword fights. Okay, hitting Mitch in the face more. Yeah, sorry, Matt.
Absolutely.
And
no offense taken.
And then swords.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sword fight.
Sword fighting.
That'd be great.
If you promise more crowbar hits to the face and swords, you will get more money.
So, Daryn, do you think Mitch Manners would have muscle memory for a sword, or would he be just like, "What's going on"?
Oh.
I think he would hope that it would kick in once his memories flood back, and then be like, "Oh."
Well,
and have to just get scrappy. I think that's what Mitch would have to do.
Wouldn't people assume that because I have an English accent that, like, intrinsically, like, the instinct of fencing would pop in?
It's come down. It's come down the centuries. Yeah.
I'd assume that ridiculously absurd stance of somebody who's doing a sword fight completely unnecessary for a normal sword fight.
Wait, you guys don't duel?
I would parry and
thrust.
I'm
so disappointed. Those PBS shows have lied to me.
Yeah, no, we parry and thrust a lot.
Well, we weren't going to talk about that.
Yeah, no, it's mostly the private schools, but
it's a great sport requirement, parry and thrust.
Yeah, we got it. Wow. Okay, this has been tons of fun.
We got in some interesting tangents. So, well, thanks a lot, guys. It's been great talking with you. I wish you the best of luck with the campaign.
Thanks very much.
There can be only one, and we hope it's Timekeeper.
And just to remind everybody, where can they find you and Timekeeper online?
Sure. Timekeeper, the main site is timekeepershow.com. You can find links to our YouTube channel, to Stream Now TV and JTS TV. We're both on. Those are both also on Roku. And Twitter and Facebook are both Timekeeper Show. And again, you can find those all through the main site as well.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys, and good luck, and please keep in touch.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us on.
Hi, this is John Badham from Saturday Night Fever and War Games, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Well, thanks to Daryn and Matt for the interview, and please be sure to check out Timekeeper and their Indiegogo campaign. We will have links to their show and the campaign in the show notes.
Coming up on our next episode, a return visit from game, animation, and comic book writer Christy Marks.
Now, Christy has written for classic animation series like G.I. Joe, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and Jem and the Holograms, for comic books like Birds of Prey, and has written for a number of video games and TV shows as well. And she is also the author of the book Writing for Animation, Comics, and Games. After that episode, we'll have an interview with Christopher Kentworthy, the author of best-selling Master Shot series of books. Now we'll talk to him about writing and filmmaking and learn more about his Master Shots books and his newest book, Shoot Like Tarantino. Now, also before we go, we want to remind you that you can keep track of us by subscribing to us on iTunes or Stitcher, or following our GenreTainment Facebook page, Marks' Twitter account, which is @MrMarks, our website at GenreTainment.com, or follow all of the shows at SciFiPulseRadio.com.
So that's it for today's GenreTainment. We'll be back soon with all new guests from our favorite films, TV shows, novels, and web series.
GenreTainment is a production of Alien Jungle Bug Productions. Until next time.
Can you say there can be only one?
There can be only one.
Yes, perfect.
Nice. I think that might be a nice new perk. Matt
I
will
know,
say in an English accent anything you want.
I think so, yeah. I think that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Of course you are.
Can you say, please, sir, can I have some more?
Oh, how dare you? That's kind of racist. But actually,
you were making fun of the whole thing earlier.
No, you're absolutely right. I understand you're ironically asking me to say it, but you do want to hear me say, please, sir, can I have some more?
Yeah. Oh, he is English.
Yes, he's clearly English, and he was probably an orphan. Listen to it.
He is English. Oh, those poor orphans.
He's got that orphan sound to it.
Eat your food. There are starving orphans in London.
Yes.
Absolutely. Please, yes, donate freely to Timekeeper Indiegogo for the orphans of London, who will indirectly benefit from this funding.
Bad monkey.